Some men just want to watch the world burn.
This isn't a reference to the deranged clown in the DC universe, it's not even a reference to the deranged clown in the Bleach universe, but it does have to do with Bleach, and even though he bears a striking resemblance to the aforementioned mad scientist, he is very much not a fictional character. And it's none other than Kubo himself. I could literally do a whole series on all the shit Kubo left unanswered, which subsequently caused a lot of discussions and comment sections to devolve into anarchy, and I probably will. So today I'm going to focus on one of the most arcane events in the Thousand Year Blood War, and that is the original war. It's called the Millennium Blood War. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that it happened 1,000 years prior to the current events. The Kaiser Jezang speaks of the Quincy Emperor who would regain his art over 900 years, regain his intellect over the following 90 years, and his power over the 9 years thereafter. The latter period beginning when Yhwach invoked Oshvelen, an event that inadvertently led to the deaths of Masaki and Kanai, and ending in his battle with Ichibei as the power of the Almighty was finally restored upon him. If we're to believe the Quincy legend, technically the First War takes place a few days short of 999 years to the day of the Vandenreich invasion. But who's counting? And if we're talking of how it fits into the earliest events that we've seen in the form of recollections and expositions, it comes after the events depicted in Busby's flashback. And how do we know this? Well, between the time Yhwach burns down his father's castle and he vows to avenge his family, and when him and Newgram later come face to face with Yuha, there's a 5-year gap in time. Following that, there's a further 3-year time skip to when Busby joins the ranks of the Standritter. And what you'll notice in 2 out of these periods is the appearance of Seydlitz, Hubert and Algora, all of whom are reawakened as Yamamoto's servants in a manifestation of one of his bankai abilities 1,000 years down the line. Yamamoto categorically states that his ability Zanka no Tachi South only applies to those he has slain in the past, which means they lost their lives in the First War, and the fact that they appear in Busby's flashback is definitive proof that they hadn't engaged in battle with Yamamoto and the Soul Society at the time. It's safe to conjecture that the war took place in Soul Society based on both Yamamoto and Yhwach's words. For Yuha's account will once again refer to Busby's flashback, but strictly speaking, the panels I'm referring to are not really part of the quote-unquote flashback, because Busby isn't really present, so there's no way he would have any knowledge of this conversation. Before Yhwach meets Busby and Harshwald, we see an exchange he has with Seydlitz where he speaks of his next conquest. Seydlitz points out that there exists no region within the Lichtreich, which I'm guessing refers to the northern lands that they haven't already conquered, to which Yhwach declares the Soul Society as his next target for subjugation. This precursory conversation ties in pretty well with Yamamoto's post-war version of events. In chapter 511, we see an old memory of Yamamoto where Kyoraku, cheeky bastard, sneaks into his room and asks him about the painting on his wall. The painting depicts from Kyoraku's perspective what looks like a mythical fire god, but is obviously one of Yamamoto donning the flames of his Zanpakuto. Speaking in third person, he introspectively refers to himself as a monster that appeared in Soul Society when it was in its greatest moment of peril. Interestingly, he points out that he, or the monster, only added flame to the fire, pun intended, and if it had to make a second appearance, that would mark Yamamoto's last day in the Soul Society. He may have been a bloodthirsty brute, which is why he refers to himself as a monster, but there's not many opponents that would require him to go ham so hard that he'd be just as much of a menace to the Soul Society, so this is obviously in reference to the First War. Directly moving on from that, and this is where we get into speculation territory, the framing of his words is quite intriguing. Whatever translation you come across, whether it's "I fear that'll be the last day I'm ever seen in this place," or "I'll probably never be back here again," they both imply that Soul Society's hierarchy would take action themselves in whatever capacity they deemed necessary. Whether that would mean imprisoning him in the Muken or actually executing him, which, knowing what we know now from the new chapter, wouldn't exactly be the brightest of ideas, it just goes to show that regardless of his intentions and his fidelity to the Soul Society, the sheer destruction and obliteration that he caused wasn't something they could have ignored. And I imagine that's a conversation they would have had with him. That being said, the bankai he used at the time was a vastly simplified one. According to Royd Lloyd, who had not only Yuha's appearance but also his memories, his bankai was a blade capable of sealing all the flames his spiritual pressure could conjure, and at a moment's notice enveloping its target in an explosive inferno. It's presumably what he used to kill Seydlitz, Hubert and Algora amongst several dozens of Quincy. Harshwald and Busby were also part of the Standritter, but it still remains to be seen what part each of them played in the war. At the very least, we know that Harshwald wasn't present for the Yhwach vs Yamamoto showdown on account of him not being familiar with Yamamoto's bankai. So just how did Yamamoto win? It's hard to imagine that Yhwach equipped to the Almighty lost to Yamamoto's incomplete bankai, and yes, based on Busby's memories, Yhwach did possess the Almighty. Unless, for whatever reason, he didn't use it. And the more you think about it, the more plausible it sounds. When Nimai confronts Yhwach, he distinctly states that the Zero Squad have records of Yhwach's power from this very fight, but he makes no mention of the Almighty or even the fact that Yhwach's eyes seem normal. In addition, Ichibei in his fight with Yhwach is completely blindsided by the manifestation of the Almighty. Even with the info they gathered from Yhwach's battle with Yamamoto, he has no idea what the Almighty is or even how it works. And all of this paints the picture that Yhwach didn't use the Almighty, which may have something to do with Hashwalt's implied absence. In chapter 659, it's confirmed that Hashwalt receives the power of the Almighty when Yhwach is at rest. Now, assuming this isn't a passive transfer of power and that he can actually bestow the Almighty upon Hashwalt while remaining awake, then perhaps this is what happens in his fight with Yamamoto. Why he would choose to do that, though, is still not clear. Alternatively, and this is what I'm most inclined to believe, Yhwach did use the Almighty, he just chose not to act on it. Perhaps among all the futures he saw, there wasn't any that would emerge with him being victorious. So his plan was keep his cards close to his chest, subtly accept defeat at the hands of Yamamoto, instruct a detached unit of Standrita consisting of the likes of Hashwalt and Basbi to save him before Yamamoto could deal the finishing blow, and ultimately play the waiting game. A 1,000-year waiting game. And as doubtful as it may sound, it does explain a couple of things. The first one being the Kaiser Jezang, a prophetic song that could only have been created from the power of the Almighty well before the decisive battle. Yhwach definitely knew his fate. The second thing it brings to light is how he managed to escape an encounter with the savage incarnation of destruction that was the young Yamamoto. Considering, if we're to quote the Kaiser Jezang, he'd lost his power, his intellect, and his pulse. There's no way Yamamoto would have spared him, so someone had to have saved him at the exact moment the Captain Commander let his guard down. An incredibly shameful oversight that Mayuri very overtly lords over him. It goes without saying that the opposing factions in the war were the Shinigami and the Quincy, the Shinigami being led by Yamamoto and the Primordial Squad captains like Unohana, and the Quincy led by Yhwach and the Shrift-wielding Standrita who were recruited exclusively for the war against Soul Society. Yhwach says as much to Seydlitz in a previous conversation. It seems like the conquest of the territories within the Lichtreich was just a stepping stone, a preliminary course of action to readily enlist an army, all for his final goal of invading the Soul Society. As unlikely as it seems, I'm really hoping the First War is one of those things the anime shows in greater detail. I wouldn't even mind it being non-canon if we get to see what the world was like and how the original Gotei 13 captains combated the Standrita. But we can only hope. I'm trying not to be too greedy, so I'll take what I can get. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you've got any theories on the First War, I'd love to hear them, because if there's one fanbase that are genuine pros at speculation, it's a Bleach fandom. Kubo made us like this, but I'm proud to be a part of it. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and it would really help if you subscribe to the channel. Gives me the fuel to do more of these videos. Until next time, stay safe. Peace.